Hi guys, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be learning how to cut and sew a trouser. This video is very detailed, and after watching this video, you'll be able to make any type of trouser, be it palazzo, straight pants or shorts. You just have to make adjustments to your measurements and you will make a perfect trouser. If you love sewing like I do, then you have to hit on that subscribe button, as I have lots of useful sewing contents on my channel and I'll be sharing much more. Now let's get into today's tutorial. I have about 2 yards of crepe fabric here, which I'll be using to make my trouser. I'll be making use of the following measurements. I have the waist measurement, I also have the hips measurement, and also the trouser length that I'll be working with. For the waist, I have 27 inches. For the hips, I'll be working with 39 inches, and for the trouser length, I'll be working with 44 inches. I'll also be needing my waist to knee length measurement, which is about 21 inches. So to start, I'll be folding my fabric into two just like this. I want to start by cutting the front part of the trouser. Now to know the amount of fabric I will put on fold, I'm just going to divide my hip circumference by 4 and I'll be adding an extra 3 inches to it. The hip circumference I'm working with is 39. 39 divided by 4 is about 9.75. I'm just going to take it as 10 and I'll be adding 3 inches to this to give me 13. So the amount of fabric I'm going to fold over will be 13 inches. At the top part here, I want to mark my start line. So I'll just come down by 2 inches from the top to get my start line. Then I will make a straight line. This line is my start line and I'll be taking all my measurements beginning from this line. I'll be marking the full length of my trouser. Now this trouser is going to have a band. For the band, I'll be using a band height of 1.5 inches. Remember, the full length of our trouser is 44 inches, so I'll be subtracting this band height from the full length of my trouser. 44 minus 1.5, this should give me about 42.5, so I'll be marking 42.5 for my trouser length. Now, whatever height you choose to use for your band, subtract that from your full length measurement. Your band can be between 1.5 inches to 2 inches. I'll just go ahead and mark a straight line there. Sorry that part is not visible, but that's how you go about it. The next line I want to mark is my waist to knee length, and just like we did for the full length, I'll be subtracting 1.5. So 21 minus 1.5, this is 19.5, and I'll just mark this here to get a straight line for my knee length. The next line I will mark is my hip line. I'll be using a measurement of 8 inches for my hip line, and I'll draw a straight line here. The next line I'll be marking is my crotch depth. Now to get the crotch depth, I'll be dividing my hips measurements by 4. My hips is 39 inches. 39 divided by 4, this is 9.75. So I'll be marking 9.75 for my crotch depth. From the start line, I'll mark 9.75 inches and I'll make a straight line. So we have the start line, which is our waistline. We have the hip line, we have the crotch line, we have the knee line, and we also have the full length line. So now it's time to start imputing our horizontal measurements. Before doing that, I want to mark 1 inch on each of these lines. This will serve as our allowance. We're doing this directly on fabric, so we have to give room for our seam allowance. Now I can start imputing my measurements. Now I'll be starting my measurements right from that 1 inch mark we just made. I'll be imputing my hip measurements on the crotch line and also on the waistline. Our hips measurement divided by 4, which is 9.75. I'm marking 9.75 on the crotch line and on the waistline to give me a straight line, which I'll mark here. On the waistline, I'll be imputing my waist measurement starting from this line we just marked. I'll be dividing my waist measurement by 4 and I'll impute the value on the waistline starting from that line that we just marked. I'll be connecting the waist to the hip just like this. I'll be extending this line outwards above the waistline and you will see why soon. Now just connect these 2 points together, the points on the hip line and the points on the crotch line. I'll connect them together like this. The next thing I want to do is to mark the crotch extension. Now there's a formula for calculating the crotch extension for the front and for the back. For the front crotch extension, you divide the hips by 20 to get the value for the front crotch extension. While for the back crotch extension, you divide your hips by 10 to get the value for the back crotch extension. My hips is 39. So for the front crotch extension, I will divide 39 by 20. This will give me 1.95 and I'll just take this as 2. So I'll be using 2 for my front crotch extension. For the back crotch extension, I'll be dividing 39 by 10 and this will give me 3.9, which I'll just round up to 4. So I'll be using 4 for my back crotch extension. From this point here, I'll be marking 2 inches for the front crotch extension. Then I'll go ahead to curve it this way. The next thing I want to do is to mark the crease line. To get the crease line, I'll measure from where we have the crotch extension to the hip points, and then I will mark the midpoint of this measurement. I will mark this measurement on the knee line and also on the full length line. So this gives us a straight line which runs through the middle of the trouser, but I will not be marking out this line. The next thing I want to do is to impute my round knee measurement on the knee line. My round knee measurement is 18 inches. I'll be dividing this measurement by 4 and I will impute the value I have on each side of the crease line. 18 divided by 4 is 4.5, so I'll be imputing 4.5 on each side of the crease line. I'm making a wide leg trouser, but I don't want the hem to be too wide. You can choose to impute the same value you have on your knee line at the hem line, but for me, I'll be reducing it by ½ inch. So instead of putting 4.5, I'll be putting 4 inch on the hem line. Now I'll just go ahead and connect all those points together. Now remember, we extended the line upwards on the waistline, so I'll be marking ½ inch on that extension and I will connect this back into my waistline just like this. This will enable the waistbands of the trouser to sit properly on the waist. So now that I'm done marking out the trouser, I'll be adding my allowances all around the trouser block. I'll be adding 1 inch seam allowance on the side, while on the rest of the trouser I'll be adding ½ inch seam allowance. On the hemline, I'll be adding 1 inch allowance for my hemming. I'll just go ahead and mark that out, after which I will cut out the trouser. So I've cut out the front block and I'll be setting this aside for now. Now I want to work on the back block of the trouser, and just like we did for the front, I'll be folding my fabric into 2. To know the amount of fabric to put on fold for the back, I will be adding 5 inches to my hip measurements. This is because the back is bigger than the front. I'll be marking the start line like we did in front, but this time I'll be coming down by 3 inches. So this is the waistline. From this point, I'll be marking the exact vertical measurements we marked in front. That is the hip line, the crotch line, the knee line, and the full length line. At the side, I'll be marking 3 inches on each of those lines. This is where I will start taking my measurements from. Just like we did in front, I'll be marking quarter of my hip measurement on the crotch line and also on the waistline. But I won't be connecting these points to get a straight line. This is because for the back, the line has to be slanted to give shape to the bum. To get the slant line, on the crotch line, I'll be coming in by 1 inch, while on the waistline, I'll come in by 2 inches. I'll connect these 2 points together to give the slant line. This is our new center back line. It is from this new center back line that I'll be taking my hip measurements and my waist measurements. So I'll go ahead and mark a quarter of my hip measurements on the crotch line and also on the hip line. Coming to the waistline, I'll also mark a quarter of my waist measurements. I'll go ahead and connect all those points together. On the crotch line, I will mark my back crotch extension, which is 4 inches. And then I will draw out my curve just like this. Now if you notice, the center line is extended outwards above the waistline. So starting from the waistline, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches outwards. This is to account for the butt rise, so your trouser will sit properly on your butt without sliding down. From that 1.5 inches mark, I'm going to connect it back to the waistline just like this. Then we'll have a slant line for the waist instead of that straight line we had initially. So this is the new waistline that we'll be working with for the back block. Just like we did for the front, I'll be coming upwards by ½ inch on the side line. So I'll mark the ½ inch and I'll connect this back into the waistline. Now I'll be marking the crease line on the knee line and also on the full length line. I'll be using the same crease line value I used for the front. The next thing I want to do is to mark my round knee measurement. Now remember what we said earlier, that the back block is bigger than the front block. So I'll be adding an extra ½ inch for the measurements I used in front. So on the front block, I marked 4.5 inches on the round knee measurement. So for the back, I'll be adding ½ inch to that, which is 5 inches. So I'll mark 5 inches here. On the hemline, I marked 4 inches in front, but for the back, I'll be marking 4.5 inches. So just add ½ inch to whatever measurement you used in front. Now I'll connect all those points together to complete my trouser block. Now I'll go ahead and add all my seam allowances all around this block. At the center, I'll be adding my zipper there. So instead of ½ inch, I'll be adding 1 inch there up to the point where my zipper will stop for my zipper allowance. So I'll just mark 1 inch down up to the point I want my zipper to stop. And then I will continue with the ½ inch. I'll continue adding my seam allowances all around the rest of the block, making sure I use the same allowance I used in front. And then I'll go ahead to cut it out. So I'm done cutting out the back block. I'm just going to set this aside while we work on the rest part of the trousers, which is the waistband and the pockets. Starting with the waistband, I'll fold my fabric into two just like this. We'll be cutting the band for the front block and for the back block. I'll bring in one of my trouser blocks and place it this way. Remember, the waistband length we subtracted from the full trouser length was 1.5 inches. So I'll make sure my fabric is enough to give me 1.5 inches. I'll go ahead and mark out the shape I have for my waist just like this. Just watch to see what I'll do. You can see how I extended the lines out at the center and at the side. So starting from the waistline, I'll be marking my band height. The band height is 1.5 inches. And I'll be adding ½ inch allowance at the top and at the bottom for joining. So this is adding an extra 1 inch to the band height, which brings the total measurement to 2.5 inches. So I'll be marking 2.5 inches for my band height. Now I just want to indicate where the center is so I don't get it mixed up later. So I'm just going to make a mark here to indicate that this is the center. Now I'm writing F here to show that this is the center front so I don't get it mixed up with the back piece. And I'll go ahead to cut out my band. I have 2 pieces here which I've cut out, and I have 2 which I cut out earlier, making it a total of 4 pieces. This is for the front, so you need 4 pieces for the front and 4 pieces for the back because we are going to use one set to turn the other set. For the pockets, I'm going to fold my fabric into 2 just like this. Then I will bring in my front trouser block. I'm going to place it this way, making sure that the center line is at the place that we have unfold. I'm also making sure that the pocket doesn't get to the center of the trouser block. You can see that there is space between the pocket and the trouser. I'll just follow the shape of the trouser and mark it out just like this. Now you want to stop at your hip line or just before your hip line. I'll be stopping mine before my hip line, so I'll just make a point there and mark out my pocket just like this. I'll go ahead and cut this out. We need 2 pockets, so I'll be using this to cut out the second pocket. So these are all the pieces needed to make our trouser. I'll be creating the pocket opening on the front block of the trouser and on the pockets. To do this, I'll just place my 2 front blocks together, making sure that all parts are aligned. From the side line here, I'll go in by ½ inch at the waistline. And I'll come down by 5 inches. This is enough to allow the hands enter through the pockets. I'll just mark that and I'll connect both points together just like this. Now before you cut out, you want to measure the waistline to know the exact measurement, because after joining your pockets, you have to make sure you get back your exact waist measurement. So after noting my waist measurement, I'll just go ahead and cut this out. I'll use this to cut out the opening on the pockets. I'll place both pockets right side facing right side or wrong side facing wrong side. You just want to make sure you're placing it correctly so you don't end up cutting the same thing for both sides. I'm just making sure everything is aligned correctly. And I'll place my trouser block on it just like this. I'll use this as a guide to cut out my pocket opening. So that's it for the cutting of our trouser. In the next part of this video, I'll be showing you how to sew it together. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and turn on post notifications so you will know when I'll post the next part. Also, don't forget to like and share this video and let me know in the comment section if this video was helpful to you. See you in the next video. Bye!